Today's guest is Nathan Holritz. Nathan is an entrepreneur based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Nathan photographed weddings for over a decade before becoming the founder and CEO of photographersedit.com. He's also the host of the Bokeh podcast. In his free time, Nathan enjoys spending time with his 2 children, his family, and his friends. He also enjoys reading, playing soccer, and riding motorcycles. I reached out to Nathan to come on the show today for a few different reasons. A lot of my coaching clients have been looking at their businesses and really starting to break them down to see what's working and what's not working for them, both as business owners, but also as moms. We've really been digging into finding what hangups or snags are keeping them from providing a great client experience, but also how their workflow is affecting their families. We've been talking a lot about outsourcing things that are either not bringing you joy or just taking too long. Editing has certainly been heavily discussed for sure, and anytime you come across this topic of outsourcing inside a Facebook group, you're certain to find a mix of emotions about it. I'm totally for outsourcing, whether you choose to use an independent contractor or if you choose an editing company like Photographers Edit. Today, Nathan and I are pulling back the curtain on what the editing outsourcing process can look like, no matter if you're using a company like Photographers Edit or if you're using an independent contractor.
Welcome to the Weisz Photographer Podcast with your host, Chelsy Weisz. Each week, Chelsy is bringing you the best tips and tricks to help you create a joyful, profitable, more purpose-filled photography business. Chelsy is a wife and mom of 2 who has built a thriving photography business in her tiny hometown in western North Dakota. Without further ado, here's your host, Chelsy Weisz.
Hey guys, I'm so excited for this interview. I have Nathan from Photographers Edit with me today, and I'm really excited to really dig into the topic that we're going to be covering today. So first off, Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And can you give us kind of a little bit of a background of who you are, what you did beforehand, and what you're doing now?
Well, I started in wedding photography back in 2001, and ultimately I shot weddings for over 10 years. During that time, I started Photographers Edit. I wanted more time in my life for my family, and I also needed a solution that would handle my editing. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I was spending way too much time editing, so I needed a solution that would handle that for me. I also saw an opportunity in the industry for another post-production company, and so 2008, I started Photographers Edit, or relaunched Photographers Edit, and here we are now about 12 years later. It's kind of crazy.
That's awesome. I've been with Photographers Edit since 2015, so it's been a few years.
That's wild.
And outsourcing has seriously, hands down, been the best business decision I've ever made for myself, for my clients, but I think more importantly, like for my family, because I was just spending so much time in front of my computer.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through what the process is with Photographers Edit? Like, what exactly do you guys do for photographers?
Yeah, well, our specialty is custom image editing for professional photographers. The majority of the photographers that we work with are wedding photographers or portrait photographers in one form or another. And with that specialty of custom image editing, it's important we understand first how the photographer edits their images currently. So we've set up a way for them to share those editing preferences with us so that our team isn't just blindly processing their images, but that we're actually attempting to match their editing style. And so as you create an account, you set up your editing preferences, you're then able to submit orders for color correction, culling and color correction if you want us to do that as well. We also have retouching services. But everything we do ultimately centers around providing a custom product that matches your editing style.
Awesome. And you guys are doing consultations now, right? When people sign up. That's something new from when I joined. What kind of goes into like the consultation?
Well, a custom image editing house, naturally, we need to develop some type of a relationship with the photographers that we're working with. So it only made sense that we put more effort and energy into having conversations with our clients. And that was really the thought process behind it. While some companies were kind of going the direction, other post-production companies were going the direction of cheaper services, which means less of a hands-on approach, a less personalized approach. Naturally, I wanted to go kind of the opposite direction. I wanted to be more personal. And so these consultations, usually with Tiffany, who kind of specializes in managing that process with us. Those consultations mean getting to know our clients better, helping them with any questions or concerns that they might have, helping them potentially set up their editing style or editing preferences. But it all comes down to a relationship in the end. In fact, one of the biggest concerns about outsourcing editing is that company that's taking over the process for you doesn't know how to do so, how to match your style. There's a lot of concern around that, and understandably so. But those concerns, those fears can be minimized through conversation, through understanding. And so that's what the purpose of those consultations ultimately are.
I love that. I know when I was kind of searching through the Facebook group and different Facebook groups on like questions on what other photographers were having when it comes to outsourcing, it just came up over and over. Like, I'm so picky. I have my own style. Like, I don't think someone else could do this for me. And I think that the way that you guys have kind of set up this system with the consultations and then again with like the feedback systems really helps to like alleviate that fear and work through it. And so I'm really thankful for it. And I think it's what you guys are doing is awesome. I kind of talked a little bit about the feedback system, but how does that work for people who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, well, again, it centers, everything's about communication in the end, right? If, in fact, any kind of relationship, personal or professional, if you're going to have a good relationship, there needs to be good communication. And in fact, I don't know if you've ever worked retail or corporate world or any other job besides for yourself, but I know I have. And in that process of being hired by another company, there is a lot of communication up front, and then there's ongoing communication as well. And it's a very, very similar process. When you, as the photographer, hire Photographers Edit as essentially your employee to do your editing for you, a good relationship requires good explanation of your editing style up front, making very specific requests when it comes to how you want your orders processed. And then similarly to working for another company, you also want to make sure that there's ongoing communication. So when you ask about the feedback process, naturally you're going to share your preferences before you place an order. But if you get an order back and you're like, you know what, this looks pretty good, but the contrast is a little bit off in the outdoor portraits, or maybe the white balance wasn't quite what you were thinking during the reception, or maybe the studio light, the color wasn't quite what you expected. You want it tweaked just a little bit. That's a normal part of the process. And so what we've done is built a platform that enables you to give that feedback to us, number one, and then to very quickly request a redo for that order. A lot of photographers are apprehensive about giving constructive criticism or what they might feel as negative feedback. But as I said before, everything in this relationship revolves around good communication, and the feedback process or the feedback page ultimately is part of that communication. So we welcome that feedback. It makes it a lot easier for the client to let us know what they'd like to see a little bit different and to also request a redo. And then they don't have to spend a whole lot of time going back and forth via email with customer support. You just send that feedback in, we make the updates, and send the finished product back to you.
Yeah, I know I've had to do a couple, not very many, but I'd say maybe over like since 2015, maybe 3 or 4 feedbacks, just having them redo it. And it wasn't anything major, but I know after I've done those feedback, like had sent them back, they've come back really quickly, which I really appreciate.
Good. And
it's carried on into like the next weddings that I've photographed, like all of those notes and everything.
Wonderful.
Which I think is what you guys are striving to do.
100%.
I know when I've read through a few people, like threads on outsourcing, people have said, well, I sent it in once and it just came back terrible. And like just trying to go back, like I think people, like you've said, have a hard time giving constructive criticism. And I think understanding up front that that's part of the relationship is back and forth to figure out what it is so that you can really pinpoint where things need to get changed and what it is that you do or don't like.
And you make an interesting point there. It's understanding what you do or don't like. So one of the biggest challenges for a photographer when they go to outsource or delegate their editing to somebody else is, first of all, being clear about what exactly it is that they want. I've even found this as a company owner, as CEO of Photographers Edit, working with a team. I'm having to continue to improve my communication skills because there's this funny tendency I think that we have, particularly as sole proprietors. We run our own business, we're our own boss. Most of the time, we're only talking to ourselves, right? So we make sense to ourselves. But when it comes time to communicate that to somebody else, now we have to put it in words. And we have to put it in words that actually resonate or make sense to the person that we're communicating with. So it's nobody's fault, really. It's something that we're not used to having to do. So it's a process. So it's really important when you go begin this process of delegating your editing work to be clear, first of all, what it is that you want, what your style is, what you're expecting Photographers Edit to do for you, and then figure out how to communicate that in a really simple, clean, concise manner. And that makes all the difference in the world in getting a great finished product back.
I love that. I love it. You guys also have what's called a premium membership now. So what is that, and how did that come about, I guess, a little bit?
Well, obviously, we're looking for ways to continue to improve the level of service that we have. And the premium membership enables us to be able to provide an even higher level of service to a select number of clients than we already do. Now, the reality is what has happened over the last couple of years or so is that the majority of our active clients are now premium members. But that premium membership means a couple of really important things. Number one, a 3 business day turnaround time for any orders of 800 images or less. And then 2, those images are going to a dedicated editing team. And that means that you have the same eyes looking at your images consistently, which can, and the end goal with that, of course, is to help improve consistency in the final product that you're getting back. Right now, it's only $99 for the year. And that's a pretty great deal, I think, for the massive benefit that you get in return. The only caveat to this premium membership is that you have to actually schedule the order in advance. So if you know you've got upcoming portrait sessions or weddings or otherwise, you can go through your calendar and then take that information, go to the Photographer's Edit site, to your account, to the calendar, and add or schedule those orders in advance when you're going to be placing those orders. Then you can get that quick turnaround time. And ultimately, it's a massive benefit for our clients.
Yeah, I know. I've actually built it into my workflow in Honeybook now. Is like
That's
as soon as I book the session, I schedule my editing time. So for me, that looks like going through and pulling out my images that I'm going to edit for the blog, and then editing those, and then like sending it on to Photographer's Edit. So right away, I'm scheduling it with you guys months in advance, which just kind of alleviates some stress for me. And I found for me, because I'm editing those blog images so quickly, because I like to get those up by like Monday or Tuesday after the wedding. I know even though I'm sending more than 800 images to you guys, I've got those 100 to 200 images that I've already edited that I think makes it a little bit easier for you guys to kind of sync back and forth between all of it. And you're still making adjustments to all of them for sure, but that I think has really helped with my consistency and making sure that it's like, because I know editing styles for me anyways have evolved a lot since when I started in 2015 with you guys.
True.
Like it's changed just on what I like and feedback I've been getting. And I like that I can go in and update my preferences with you guys anytime
100%.
that I want to. If I'm taking an editing course and I'm like, oh, I could do that. And when that changes that, it changes this. And I like that better than what I had beforehand. So I love that I can update that whenever.
And the cool thing too is that, and you've probably noticed this within the last, I want to say 6 to 8 months or so, maybe a little bit longer, we've added the ability to add multiple editing styles, because we had some photographers saying, hey, I process my weddings one way, but my portrait sessions I process a different way. And so what we've done now is created space for you to upload up to 3 different custom editing styles, so that when you go to place an order, if you're placing an order for a wedding and you process your images a particular way, you choose your wedding style. And then you go to place a portrait order, you want those processed another way, then you can choose your portrait style. Just a quick little drop down, you choose from that, and then our team knows to process your images in that way.
I want to take a second to thank the sponsor for today's show, Photographer's Edit. Photographer's Edit knows what it's like to be overwhelmed in running a photography business. When Nathan Holritz, Photographer's Edit founder and CEO, started the company back in 2008, he was photographing about 30 weddings a year and spending way too much time editing. He found that there really just wasn't a great solution for his problem, so he created the very post-production company that he needed as a photographer. If you find yourself sitting in front of the computer through nap time and then on into the wee hours of the night editing a backlog of sessions, then I invite you to check out Photographer's Edit. They offer custom post-production to busy photographers just like yourself. But what they're really doing is giving photographers their time back. Time that you can focus on things that are actually going to grow your business, and time to spend with those you care the most about. Photographer's Edit is offering listeners of the Weisz Photographer podcast a special discount. You can get 50% off your first order of $20 or more when you visit photographersedit.com/Weisz podcast. I've personally been with Photographers Edit since 2015, and it has hands down been the best decision that I have ever made in my business. Their quick turnaround time has helped me to surprise and delight my clients and let me focus on things that matter, like growing my business and allowing me to be fully present when I shut the door on work for the day. I love that I don't have that nagging thought in the back of my head reminding me that I still have thousands of photos to edit. You too, friend, can create a business that truly lets you live the type of life that you want to lead. Again, head over to photographersedit.com/Weisz podcast for 50% off your first order of $20 or more. All right, guys, let's dig right back into this episode. So I went ahead and pulled a couple questions that I was seeing inside Facebook groups. And I kind of just want to point them directly to you, like to the source kind of here. So one of the first things that I saw was, I need to hire an editor. I don't even know where to start. What do you suggest people start with if they're starting to look at outsourcing?
If they're beginning to look at delegating or outsourcing their editing elsewhere, the first thing that I'd recommend is what we talked about just a second ago. Be really clear about what it is that you want. First of all, what your editing style is, and then what you're ultimately expecting to get from this editing company. Expectations are a really interesting thing. And in fact, as we go into 2020 now, expectation management is something that I'm thinking about. How can we better help photographers understand what we are offering to them so that they know immediately, hey, this works for me or it doesn't work for me. But photographers on the other side of that are going to know if Photographers Edit works for them, if they're clear up front about what it is they're looking for. So that's really important because a lot of photographers come to Photographers Edit or have over the years, and they aren't really quite sure what they want, or even if they are, they know in here, but there's this kind of weird subconscious expectation for us to just be able to kind of read their mind and get the work done. And then they, as you pointed out earlier, they submit one order, they get it back and they're not happy. And at least some of those cases, potentially many of those cases, they didn't take the time to clearly understand what it was that they wanted first so that they could then effectively communicate that to our team so we could then give that to them. So being clear about what you want, knowing how to communicate that effectively, that's the most important thing up front. And then if you know what you want, you know if Photographers Edit is a good fit for you, or you know if a different company is maybe a better fit for you. Knowing what you want is really important.
I love that. Another little thing that I got read on a Facebook page here was someone was saying, I have an internal fear that outsourcing my editing is going to make me a quote unquote fake photographer since it's something that I'm not doing myself. What do you have to say about that?
You know, I'm not quite sure where that notion came from. And it's something that I've heard over the years a good bit. But if we take a step back from it and just kind of look at it logically, it's kind of a funny thing too. Like, think about it. Are you not a photographer because you didn't build your camera? Are you not a photographer because you didn't build the software in your computer, or because you didn't build your computer? Are you not a photographer because the car that you took to get to your shoot wasn't built by you? I mean, it's funny how we kind of build up these expectations, these ideas in our head because maybe we saw something on social media or somebody went on a rant on YouTube or whatever it was. When the reality is, if you just take a step back and look at it objectively, logically, it's really not relevant to the conversation. So when you position yourself or when you present your brand as a photographer, you're not saying I'm a photographer and an editor. You're saying I am a photographer. You are the one that is capturing the images. And you also have to think about the fact that your clients or potential clients, anytime that they are interacting with one of their favorite brands, they're interacting with a brand that has a team behind it as well. So this idea that we have to do everything or it's not going to be enough, I think is something that we've ultimately built up in our head. And we have to just take a deep breath, set that aside, and realize that at the end of the day, we can actually provide a much more powerful experience for our client if we don't try to do it all ourselves. If we're willing to bring on a team of people or companies that support our end goal, we're going to actually be a much more impactful brand as a result.
I know when I was really sitting down to decide how I wanted to kind of show up in my business and the experience that I wanted to give my clients, I thought back to some experiences that I had had in the past that really resonated with me. And for me, when we went on our honeymoon, we went out to a candlelit dinner. It was 3 years after we got married, we finally went on our honeymoon. So we went on our anniversary, and we had a candlelit dinner on our anniversary on the beach, and it was wonderful. And like our waiter was kind of talking to us, asking what we were celebrating and all of that. And we got back to our room, and there was this beautiful gift basket and a card that just said happy anniversary. And it wasn't something that like we had paid for or upgraded to. Like it was just something like a gift from the resort. And I want to have that kind of surprise and delight in my photography experience with me. And one of the ways that I really realized that I could do that was turning around images a lot quicker. So if I tell my clients that it's going to be 4 weeks and I'm turning it around in a week, like that's a big surprise and delight. And like, one, like I want to treat my clients like that, but two, it has also helped out like my word of mouth advertising. Like we got our images back so quick and they were beautiful. And I think like kind of going back to what you said is like setting that expectation. And I think we as photographers can do that and then exceed it, especially when we outsource different things to kind of be able to do that. So I think that it's just kind of something I wanted to share for other photographers out there is just, I think setting expectations and then knowing that you can meet them or exceed them is like the key to running a good business.
That's really great. Well, and I love too that you ultimately know kind of the lifestyle that you want to live. If you know the lifestyle that you want to live, then you know the business model that you need to build to support that lifestyle. And for you, part of that is delegating the editing work so it frees you up to focus on something that provides a much better experience for your client. And that's huge. A lot of photographers don't take the time to take a step back and kind of look at the big picture. What is it that I want, first of all, out of life? And then as a result of that, what is the business model that I need to create so that I can have that life? And then they make the decisions about the various components of that business model, including editing, how they handle that editing. But you know, when somebody says, I feel like a fake photographer, everything that we do in life is ultimately rooted in beliefs, a belief or a series of beliefs. Not every one of those beliefs is helpful to ultimately enabling us to reach our end goals. So when we say, you know, I feel this way, well, that feeling comes from a belief or series of beliefs. We have to take a look at those beliefs, look at whether or not they are helpful or a hindrance to our effort to reach certain goals. And if they're rooted in actual fact or they're rooted in, I mean, who knows what? Again, there's a lot being thrown around on social media. I think that a lot of people gravitate towards, they grab a hold of, and they just assume that that's accurate, when the reality is it's based in a kind of a misdirected belief system. So for those photographers out there listening in, don't beat yourselves up so much. You're not a fake photographer for not handling your own editing. You'd be a fake photographer if you were saying, I am so-and-so photographer, and then you were having somebody else photograph the weddings. That's fake, or that's dishonest. This is not dishonesty. Outsourcing your editing, your admin work, album design, whatever it might be, you're being an intelligent business owner, building a team to help you support this business model, which ultimately supports your kind of big picture goals for your life.
I love that. I love what you said about kind of designing a business. I think a lot of photographers kind of see like this is what business should be like, but you really can step back and to build what it is that you do and the services that you provide and how it all runs, because you're allowed to do all of that. And I think sometimes we kind of get stuck in the mindset of, oh, this is how it should be, or this is how it has been done. But you can outsource things. You can still spend time with your family like the week after the wedding and not be glued to your computer editing for hours upon hours. I had a conversation with Shay Cochran from the SC Stock Shop just a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about one of the hardest words as moms having to say who like own a business is, I can't right now, mom has to work. And we have a lot of guilt behind that because, you know, sometimes we are feeling guilty that we are not able to be there for our families when we're also trying to be there for our clients. And she was talking about how, you know, explain to your kids, if they're old enough, you know, what it is that you're doing and what service you're providing to make the world a little bit better of a place so they can kind of have some ownership over that. And I loved how she said that, but I think being smart enough to outsource things that either you don't love or that you are just taking too much time away from what really matters is a really smart move, so that you don't have to say those words as often, because
it's so true. So true. I'm actually a single dad, so my kids are with me 95% of the time. And despite the fact that I created Photographer's Edit for the sake of freedom, not only for myself, but for other photographers, it's still something that I have to be very conscientious about, making sure that I'm finding a good balance between work and then focused time for my kids. And, the idea, as you alluded to, the idea of outsourcing or delegation enables you to have that freedom. So it's not, I'm a business owner, so I can't have time for my family. You can have both. You just have to be intentional. To your original point, you have to be intentional in designing a business model that also supports your desire to spend time with the important people in your life. Delegating editing or outsourcing editing is one of those intentional elements of your business that can ultimately free you up to be able to spend time with your kids, with your significant other.
I love that. Yes, so great. So kind of as we are kind of finishing up here, where can everyone kind of find you online?
Very simply, Photographer's Edit is just like it sounds, photographers, plural, edit.com. So photographersedit.com. We also have a podcast, which is a massive educational resource for the photography industry. If you go to Bokeh, Bokeh, podcasts.com, at this point, I've recorded over 350 episodes, so there's a lot of content out there. And then if you ever just want to reach out to me directly or personally, you can go to Nathan, Nathan, Holritz, HOLRITZ.com.
Awesome. And we'll have all those links down in the show notes below, so you guys can find all of that very easily. Thank you so much, Nathan, for coming onto the show today. I think you end up being like episode number 20 on the podcast. So we're like in our baby stages here. But I'm really thankful that we've had such amazing guests on the show. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to come on and speak with us and our audience today.
Truly my privilege. Thanks for having me.
All right. That's it for this week, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Weisz Photographer Podcast. Dive into the show's notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.theweiszphotographer.com. If you loved the show, share it with a friend. Thanks for tuning in, you Weisz Photographer you.
Guys, how great was that interview? It was so great meeting Nathan and getting to really pull back that curtain to see what the outsourcing process looks like, especially kind of from the other side. I loved how he talked about how we really need to set those expectations, just both for ourselves, but also for our editors. And I know sometimes I especially have a hard time really articulating what it is that I like in my editing and how I want things to look. I absolutely love how Photographer's Edit truly understands that this communication is an ongoing process. I really suggest that you look into outsourcing. If you aren't already, just be prepared and keep in mind that it's going to take a little bit of work up front to really convey what it is that you like and what you don't like in your editing style. But in the long run, outsourcing your editing is going to give you so much more time back in your life. More time that you can either spend working on different aspects of your business or time that you can spend with those who matter the most for you. I would love for you to join in this conversation. Please take this as your official invitation to join our Weisz Photographers Insiders group on Facebook. You can find the links below or just search Weisz Photographer Podcast Insiders in your search bar on Facebook.
Thanks for listening to the Weisz Photographer Podcast. Dive into the show's notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.theweiszphotographer.com. If you loved the show, share it with a friend. Thanks for tuning in, you Weisz Photographer you.